Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Alistair Fothergill.
Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Royal Geographic Society for what promises to be an important and fascinating evening in age of the Whitley Fund for Nature. My name is Alistair Fothergill and I'm a wildlife filmmaker. My past credits include Blue Planet, Planet Earth, Frozen Planet, and most recently The Hunt. I'm a great supporter of WFN and it's my honour to be your host this evening. Just last month, World Wildlife Fund and the Zoological Society of London released the latest Living Planet report. This year's report shows that wildlife populations worldwide between 1970 and 2012, most of our lifetime, have declined by 58%. And for the very first time in the history of our planet, the influence of a species, rather than a physical force like volcanoes or glaciers, can actually be seen in the geological records. That species, of course, is us. But there is one event every year that recharges my batteries and makes me think that the battle can be won. It occurs every spring in this very hall. As many of you know, that is the evening when WFN holds its annual Whitley Awards ceremony to recognise successful grassroots conservationist leaders. To date, WFN has given over £13 million to more than 170 conservation heroes working in 70 countries. Our first speaker is Dr. Paula Kahumbu.
Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, it's an enormous pleasure and privilege to be here tonight to tell you about the work that I've been doing for the last 3 years. Every day, 100 elephants are being slaughtered for their ivory to serve markets and demand half a world away. This is causing a tremendous problem for elephants. It's causing a lot of tragedy, a lot of trauma, and it's leading to worldwide campaigns to stop the trade in ivory and stop the killing of elephants in Africa. Well, in Kenya, we started our own campaign called Hands Off Our Elephants. And this campaign really is a statement that they're our elephants, and we should be at the front end of protecting them. But it's not just poachers who are the threat to elephants, it's also the traffickers. Kenya, a few years ago, was the world's worst country for the trafficking of ivory. And Kenya then famously burned the ivory, 105 tons, the largest statement to say that elephants are worth more alive. We were able to turn around the law in Kenya and actually implement some of the strongest deterrents with very, very steep penalties, including long jail sentences. I am not a lawyer, I'm an ecologist, but I hire Kenya's top young lawyers to help me. This is Jim Karani, who is the highest trained lawyer in Kenya on wildlife crime. And here he is teaching magistrates and judges about the new laws, about the new standard operating procedures, and about the duty that these people owe to the country in order to protect our magnificent heritage. But we can't just reach a few hundred children or a few thousand children. We need to reach millions. So we started a second program, a companion show called NTV Wild Talk. We've just hit our 45th episode. We produce 1 episode per week. Our shows are viewed by 5 million people weekly. 74% of those people say they now know more about wildlife, and 10% say that they are now visiting the parks. And this is how we're transforming the level of social consciousness about conservation in Kenya. And many of the results of our work can be seen in the reaction from the public, the actual actions that people are taking. For example, thousands of people join us to march on the streets of Nairobi every year during the Global March for Elephants, Rhinos, and Lions. And as a result of what we've been doing, poaching in Kenya has declined by 80%. Last year, we lost 80 elephants to poachers. Neighboring Tanzania loses about 1,000 elephants per month. So the impact of this work in Kenya has been tremendous, and it's not just thanks to Wildlife Direct. It's many organizations working together under the leadership of the country. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Dr. Dino Martins.
Thank you, Alistair, and thank you, Your Royal Highness, Sir David, ladies and gentlemen, for giving me a chance to come before you once again and share some of the wonder and joy of working at the interface, the cutting edge of interactions between species. Farmers and land stewards are part of the solution, and that people living and working at the front line of biodiversity need to be engaged in conservation, because that's the only option we really have to save the amazing life that supports our life on this planet. And it struck me that many conservationists worked in the forest or worked in the park, but they rarely went outside to really work with the farmers. And so that led me to the work that's been supported by you with farmers like Peter here. Peter was my research assistant in the Kerio Valley for many years doing his master's. His family are a farming family, and they grow mangoes. 7 different varieties of mangoes, absolutely delicious mangoes. And what we discovered on Peter's farm is that a wide range of different insects, over 1,000 different species on one farm, are involved in the pollination of mango. And here is a slide showing you the yield from a single tree. So this farm is able to export between 10 to 15,000 mangoes a week, thanks to the efforts of pollinators and thanks to the efforts of the farmer. This is back in 2001, when this landscape was dominated. It was overgrazed, charcoal burning, bushmeat poaching were the main ways for people to make money. And if we come forward in time, you can see the 3 sites, A, B, and C, where the farms are located. And you'll notice actually the tree cover of large trees has improved due to conservation because those complement the farming. And so this kind of land stewardship and working at a landscape level is really important for conservation. So if we are going to manage and conserve this remarkable diversity, we really need to work with communities at local scales to document it, connect it with their livelihoods, and protect it. And one of the successes we've really had is creating information that's available freely, downloaded primarily by Kenyans in Kenya, both through the internet and mobile phone platforms. And we're working on getting this into different languages at the moment and really need to scale it up to millions of people to be truly effective across the region. Because we want people to avoid using pesticides when bees are present, if possible to give up using them entirely, and if possible to really understand and improve yields through conservation of pollinators. One of the key ways we do this, and the most exciting way for me personally, is through education, through working with people of all great ages and backgrounds, from farmers to high schools to university students to young people. And finally here, a discovery that warms the cockles of my heart, and I hope it will yours too. A few years ago, at one of the farms in Kenya, we captured a bee. And at the time, I thought it looks a little bit unusual, so we sent it off for its DNA to be sequenced. And the taxonomist wrote back to me. In fact, he called me. He was so excited. He said, "This bee has never been seen before. It's a new species." So that was exciting, but it turns out it's not just a new species. It's one of the most ancient lineages of bees on the planet. So both bees and humans come from Africa, and today, both bees and humans need each other to survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to start with a question for David, if you don't mind. And I'd like to ask David about something that we've both been criticized in the past about the sort of series that we have made together, Show the Natural World in rose-tinted spectacles, and possibly we're giving people a false sense of security. How do you think that we should answer that question? Because I'm asked it a lot.
I don't think you can persuade people to take action to protect something unless they know something about it. Knowing something about it is the beginning of it, but to know something about it and to understand how it works and to think it's wonderful and to think it's precious, that is a reason for protecting it. If they don't know those things, I don't think they will take that action.
So David, I think we agree the Anthropocene is well underway, and we are now the biggest force driving the future of many species. How do you really see that in terms of evolution, given the breadth of experience you've had in natural history and biology?
I'm not sure that we can look back into the natural record, evolutionary record, and see anything remotely resembling what we are doing. Homo sapiens is an extraordinary, unprecedented species for all kinds of reasons. But one of the most fundamental is that we are so powerful. There has never been a species that could knock over a woodland and destroy it in a day. There has never been a species which has produced poisons to the extent we have, both deliberately and accidentally. We have a huge effect upon the planet. And there has never been a species, I don't know, this is rather more difficult to say, but in my lifetime, which is not all that long, but certainly all right, I'll reduce it. Since I've been producing television programs, which certainly is not all that long, the human population of the planet has tripled in size. There are 3 times more people on the planet than there were in the 1950s. And of course, every single one of them, like you and me and everybody else, we all want food, we need places to live, we need places for schools for our children, we need roads, we need all those things. And all of those take space. Now, where does that space come from? There are small areas where we can recycle, as it were, space that we've used. But by and large, over general terms, that space comes from the natural world. So we have progressively pushed the natural world into smaller and smaller area, and it's time we did something about it.
I'd like to ask you both one last question quickly. How important has the funding from the Whitley Fund for Nature been for you and your work? Why don't you start, Dino?
Thank you. The support from the Whitley Fund for Nature, in fact, I call it the Whitley Family for Nature, from all of you has been life-changing for me. Because I really reached a point in my own personal career where I had, a PhD from Harvard. I had the option to stay in the United States, to enter an ivory tower and sit there in comfort for the rest of my life. But thanks to the inspiration of working with farmers, I took a job in one of the most remote parts of Kenya, and everyone said, "You're absolutely crazy," and I was absolutely crazy because it's the absolutely right thing to do. And so this support is incredibly important because it goes to the people working on the front lines, working at the cutting edge, and genuinely working at the grassroots in a very empowering way. So for me, it's been life-changing, and thank you.
So for me, the funding from the Whitley Fund has been extraordinary. There are loads of organizations in Kenya who do boots on the ground kind of work. You put petrol in the motorbike, you buy the food rations for the rangers to do their work really out there in the field. And what I asked for was funding to support leadership in conservation, to enable me to train people like Jim Karani and his team of lawyers, to enable us to fight cases in the courts of Kenya. That is not sexy work. I know elephants are very sexy, but going into the courts in remote parts of the country, we go into 50 different courts, it's actually really hard work. So to be able to send these young lawyers out and defend justice for wildlife is extraordinary. And as a result of that work, it has triggered so many other organizations to get into this field. So I would say the Whitley Fund has actually enabled us to lead and to create a path that many other organizations have come in and started working on as well. So for that, I'm hugely grateful. Edward and your team have been, absolutely fabulous and supportive, knowing that it was quite risky. And people always ask me, aren't you guys worried? You're dealing with these criminals who are quite dangerous. So of course we're worried, but we're able to still do it. We have these courageous people that you've invested in, and that is really exciting.